This here is the all-new 2022 Honda Civic, finally launched in Malaysia. We are looking at the 11th generation of the legendary nameplate, here codenamed the FE. This represents a massive leap forward for the Civic brand. For the very first time here in Malaysia, all Civics will be offered with a 1.5-litre VTEC turbo engine, and Honda sensing safety is standard across the board. That is very big news indeed. So let's see what's good and what's not so good about the brand new Civic. Apa yang best, apa yang tak best? Let's go. Let's start with the price first. The 2022 Honda Civic now starts from 126,000 ringgit for the base E variant and 138,000 for the V. The new range-topping RS goes for 144,000 ringgit. Compared to the previous Gen FC, the new FE's base price has gone up by 16,000 ringgit. But of course, like I said, you are now getting the turbo engine and sensing as standard. But even the RS is now around 10,000 ringgit more expensive than the previous flagship. Anyway, that's still significantly cheaper than the Mazda 3, spec by spec, so there's that. On to looks, this is a very big departure for the Honda Civic. It looks a lot different compared to before. I think it looks a little bit less exciting, less sporty, but now it has a much more mature, much sleeker look compared to the old FC. Me, I don't know if I'm just getting old or something, but I think this new mature look really works for me. It somehow looks a little bit less Japanese, more European, in a good way. One of the things that I really like about the new Civic is the proportions of it all. This looks much more like a proper sedan compared to the more hatchback looking FC. The rear roofline now looks more like a sedan, which to me is definitely a good thing. At the same time though, they've kept the small little kink, the rear of the window line. That is very clever design. Around the back, this really is an all-new design. It doesn't quite look like what you'd expect from a Civic. This, I think, is a much more mature design. It's a lot more straight cut, all straight lines everywhere. And to me, I think it all works. Of course, you may think differently. Let me know in the comment section below. And while you're at it, let me know what you think we should call this new Civic. If the FC was the Civic Ketam, what do you think this should be called? Let me know below. This range-topping RS model stands out with the badges, the black headlight inserts, as well as the blacked-out side mirrors, door handles and window frame. The wheels are bigger too at 18 inches with a very sporty, almost JDM aftermarket design to it. The tyres are the same as before, Michelin Pilot Sport 4. At the back, there's a large boot-lid spoiler that looks like it came out of a BMW M Performance catalogue, plus visible twin tailpipes and chrome finishes too. Non-RS variants don't really look all that different, but of course with chrome rather than black inserts. The wheels are smaller too, 17s for the V and tiny 16s for the base E. The E loses out on front fog lamps as well, which is a shame, especially with the big price increase. Size-wise, the new Civic FE is now almost 4.7 meters long, and it's longer, wider and taller than the FC. The wheelbase is also 33 millimeters longer than before. Weight has also gone up by around 50 kilograms, and Honda claims that the new chassis is now between 8 to 13% more rigid than before. One unique feature on the new Civic is the smart wiper system. The washer nozzles are directly mounted on the wiper arms, so they clean the screen better while using less fluid. This is standard across the range, but unfortunately only the RS has automatic wipers. Inside, the new Civic is an absolute revelation. I think if you were to cover the badges and ask me what this car is all about, I would have guessed it's something from a German brand. The first thing you'll notice is, of course, this really cool looking honeycomb mesh, and the aircon vents are actually hidden behind that. You control the vents by using this small little joystick or toggle, and I think it looks good and works well too. Perceived build quality is not bad either. The top half of the dashboard is a little bit soft, and the same goes for the top of the door cards as well. I think this is a slight upgrade compared to the old Civic, but how well this will all last, we'll have to wait and see. But speaking of the aircon, it has to be mentioned that the climate control system has been downgraded from a dual zone unit to a single zone unit now. But at the same time, it's also very easy to use with these 3 large knobs with a quality feel to them. At the top here is a large 9-inch touchscreen interface, and it's the same system as used in the latest Honda Accord. But the good news is, it supports wireless Apple CarPlay, which is fantastic. Android Auto is also supported, but through a cabled connection. One thing we are missing, however, is a wireless phone charger, which is a peculiar decision. Especially with wireless CarPlay, your iPhone's battery will constantly be draining unless you plug it up, which then defeats the purpose of having a wireless connection in the first place. That's just weird. Another questionable spec choice is the semi-digital instrument cluster here, which is standard across the range. This is similar to the one fitted on the City Hybrid, which does work quite well, but it's not the more advanced full digital screen that Thailand gets. One last thing that we Malaysians miss out on is the fancy smart key card, but at least we still get remote engine start and walkaway auto lock as standard. Other than that, the Civic has steering paddle shifters, electronic parking brake, and for the very first time, a driving mode switch. The new Sport mode adjusts the CVT to a more aggressive shift pattern, while the steering weight is increased as well. As for seating, the RS gets this leather and suede combination with sporty red stitching, while the V gets full black leather instead. The base E is downgraded to fabric upholstery and even fully manual driver's seat, compared to the 8-way power seat in the top 2 variants. The headlining is also all black for the RS and plain grey for the rest. As to be expected from a Civic, the rear is pretty spacious. I'm only 167 centimeters tall, but there's generous amounts of legroom left for me to move around. Headroom might not be all that great, especially if you're really tall. So here's a shot of my 180cm colleague sitting in the back just to see how well taller people might fit in the back here. The new Civic's longer wheelbase has allowed the engineers to re-angle the seats over here. It's now more angled by 1 degree, and that may not sound like a lot at all, but that does make the rear seats a lot more comfortable for longer journeys. One thing though, the rear seat I still think is mounted a little bit too low, so if you were to sit up straight, your thighs are still a little bit hanging. Yeah, might not be well for much longer journeys. The one thing that we get as an upgrade compared to the Civic in Thailand are the rear aircon vents. Thank God for that. As for the boot, the new Civic has 497 litres of space. That is pretty respectable for the class, although it's actually around 20 litres smaller than the old Civic FE. Still, it'll swallow 4 suitcases no problem, and of course you can fold the rear seats down for more room. Under the hood is Honda's familiar 1.5-litre 4-cylinder VTEC turbo engine, now making 182 PS and 240 Nm of torque. That's an increase of 9 PS and 20 Nm from before. The transmission is the same as before, a CVT powering the front wheels, but both the engine and gearbox have been revised to offer better performance and quicker response. As for actual performance, it depends on the variant you choose. The base E gets from 0 to 100 in 8.3 seconds, while the V takes 8.4 seconds. The RS, despite looking the sportiest, is actually the slowest of the range, taking 8.5 seconds to 100. That's all due to the larger wheels and extra weight. Fuel consumption is affected too, as the lower 2 variants are claimed to average 6 litres per 100 kilometers, while the RS takes it up to 6.3 litres per 100 kilometers. Now on to safety, all 3 variants get the full Honda Sensing Active Safety Suite. You now get Autonomous Emergency Braking or AEB, Adaptive Cruise Control with Low Speed Follow, Lane Keeping Assist and Lane Centering for a full Level 2 semi-autonomous driving, as well as Auto High Beam. Instead of using a combination of a radar and camera like before, the new generation Honda Sensing relies solely on a single wide camera up front for all the active systems. Honda claims that this is more effective than the previous setup, as well as systems from its competitors. New to the Civic is a lead car departure notification system, which alerts you if you fail to react to the car in front of you moving at a traffic jam. And yes, this is pretty similar to Pro Dua's system. Honda Lane Watch is still here, as Honda says it works better for our market because it can detect motorbikes more clearly compared to a normal blind spot monitor. 6 airbags and electronic stability control are standard, obviously, so overall Honda is again setting new standards for safety for the Malaysian market. Well done, Honda. So this is the new 2022 Honda Civic here in Malaysia. What do you think of this car's looks, price and specs? And how does it compare against the previous generation Honda Civic FE? Let me know in the comments section below. For now, thank you for watching and stay safe everyone.